Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a really fascinating mission today. We are unpacking a philosophy that is honestly as radical as it is transformative.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, we are exploring the landmark work of Louise Hay. Specifically, we're looking at her core teachings from her book, You Can Heal Your Life, and how our deepest beliefs actually shape our physical and emotional reality.
And we brought a lot of sources for this one, right?
We did. A massive stack. We've got excerpts and abstracts from her central texts, her personal dictionary of emotional causes for physical symptoms, and a really comprehensive biographical overview that also covers the major criticisms of her work.
Right, because we want to be totally impartial here.
Exactly. And we aren't just stopping at the philosophy. We are crossing all of her ideas with modern neurological studies on positive affirmations, plus qualitative research on spirituality and emotional healing.
Which is, what makes this specific blend of sources so compelling. We are basically looking at ideas published decades ago, but we're viewing them through the lens of modern clinical psychology and, well, neurobiology.
Right. So let me set the stage for why this actually matters to you, the listener. Just think about your computer for a second. If the cooling fan suddenly starts spinning out of control and making this horrible grinding noise, you don't just replace the fan.
No, you look for the software issue.
Exactly. You look for the corrupted software or like the malware that's overworking the processor and causing the hardware to fail in the first place.
Right.
And we all have an inner critic. That's our corrupted code running in the background telling us, we aren't smart enough or that we messed up again. But what if that voice isn't just ruining your mood?
This is the big question.
Yeah, what if that background anxiety is literally malware manifesting as physical pain or creating the very real obstacles you just keep slamming into?
And that pushes us straight into some diagnostic muddy waters, right from the jump. Because when you examine how deeply our recurring thoughts intertwine with our physical reality, the traditional boundaries between mind and body, they just completely blur.
They really do.
We like to think of a physical symptom as this binary engineering problem, like a bone is either broken or it's not.
Right.
But chronic conditions, autoimmune responses, persistent life patterns, they force us to look at the underlying emotional software that's driving the physical machine.
So let's look at the absolute foundation of Hay's philosophy, basically covering those first three chapters.
hmm
The premise is jarringly simple. Life is a mirror. What we give out, we get back.
Yeah.
Every thought we think creates our future, and our point of ultimate power is always right now in the present moment. But she takes it a step further. She identified one core, deeply hidden, limiting belief that sits at the root of almost every problem a person can face.
And it really doesn't matter what the surface issue is, right?
No, it doesn't. Money, bad relationships, procrastination, poor health. The innermost corrupted code is almost always the belief, I'm not good enough.
Wow.
Often served with a side of, I don't do enough or I don't deserve.
Which makes total sense from a psychological standpoint. If your subconscious is running on the operational premise that you are fundamentally inadequate, it will continually orchestrate situations to validate that belief.
Right, because it wants to be right.
Exactly. Psychologists actually call it self-verification theory. People want to be known and understood by others according to their firmly held beliefs about themselves.
Even if those beliefs are terrible.
Yes, even then. So if you believe you are unworthy, your subconscious will literally sabotage a healthy relationship or a financial win because, well, it feels threatening to your established identity.
It's so wild to think about. And to understand the raw conviction behind her work, you really have to look at the extreme adversity she faced. I mean, she wasn't theorizing from an ivory tower here.
Not even close.
Her background is just a cascade of trauma. She was born into deep poverty, survived horrific childhood physical abuse, and she was raped by a neighbor when she was 5 years old.
Which is just, it's incredibly heavy.
It is. And later she dropped out of high school, became a teenage mother who surrendered her baby for adoption, and eventually faced a diagnosis of what doctors called incurable cervical cancer.
And that cancer diagnosis was basically the crucible for her entire philosophy.
Huh.
She concluded that holding on to decades of deep resentment, unprocessed rage regarding her childhood abuse, had physically eroded her immune system.
Letting the cancer take hold.
Right. And she refused traditional medical intervention, which we should note is highly controversial. Instead, she went on this strict, immersive regimen of radical forgiveness, therapy, and nutritional overhauls. And she stated that she completely cured herself through this mind-body intervention.
Yeah, and we have to pause here because this specific aspect of her work, the idea that individuals basically create their own illnesses, has faced intense and very understandable criticism.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of people view that as severe victim blaming. Critics rightly point out that telling someone their illness is their own fault, or linking something like a virus to internal guilt, that can cause immense psychological damage to someone who is already suffering.
And that criticism is entirely valid,
Yeah.
especially when her work is taken out of context.
Right.
But her defenders argue that her objective was never to induce guilt or blame. In psychology, the distinction between blame and responsibility or agency is a massive chasm.
Blame looks backward. Right.
Yeah, blame looks backward and focuses on fault. Agency looks at the present moment and focuses on the capacity to respond.
Oh.
By suggesting you have a role in the manifestation of your reality, her broader work is really an attempt to shift people out of helpless victimhood and hand them back the locus of control.
Okay, so if we distill this foundational piece for you listening, kind of summarizing these early chapters, the main lesson is about claiming responsibility for your present experience.
Right. The past only has the power you give it today.
Exactly. So the key belief to remove is that deep-seated, I'm not good enough. And the new belief to install is, I am totally willing to learn to love myself.
And what's the practical action for this one?
The practical action is to grab a piece of paper today and write down the negative messages you heard as a child, things your parents, teachers, or peers said to you, because seeing them on paper externalizes that inner critic.
You realize they're just inherited thoughts.
Right, they're memorized thoughts, not objective facts about who you are.
And externalizing those thoughts is definitely the first step to dismantling them. Because if we accept this premise that our subconscious mind is running the show and projecting these inherited beliefs, it begs a much bigger question.
How far does that control actually go?
Exactly. Does it cross the barrier from the mind into our actual physical flesh and blood?
Which brings us to chapter 14, and one of the most fascinating and contentious parts of her work, the concept of the body as a literal mirror of our inner thoughts.
The physical symptom list.
Yeah. She believed physical disease is the outer manifestation of an internal emotional pattern. And she got highly specific with this, publishing a comprehensive dictionary mapping physical symptoms to emotional causes.
So what are some examples from the sources?
Well, for instance, she categorized the back as representing our support system. So upper back pain indicates you feel lack of emotional support, or you're holding back love.
Okay.
Lower back pain is tied to a fear of money or a lack of financial support.
The symbolism she uses is very direct, isn't it? The physical body just acts out the emotional metaphor.
Totally. Let's look at the throat. She says the throat represents our ability to speak up for ourselves and our creative flow. So sore throats are fundamentally rooted in unexpressed anger.
Unexpressed anger, wow.
Yeah. And if you have a cold along with it, there's mental confusion added to the mix and laryngitis. That means you are so furious you literally cannot speak.
She applied this logic to everything, didn't she?
Everything. Constipation is linked to a refusal to release old ideas or being stuck in the past, like literally holding on tight.
That's quite the image.
Right. And cancer, as we saw in her own life, is defined as a deep, long-held resentment that literally eats away at the self.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here because I know the listener is thinking it.
Go for it.
Are we supposed to believe that my sore throat is just me being angry and not, a rhinovirus I caught on the subway? Because ignoring basic biology feels like a dangerous stretch.
Oh, absolutely. But looking through the lens of modern psychoneuroimmunology actually provides a bridge between her metaphorical claims and hard science. Modern medicine obviously confirms viruses exist.
Right, thank goodness.
But what health psychology shows us is that exposure to a virus doesn't guarantee infection. The state of your immune system dictates whether the virus actually takes hold.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, when you experience chronic, unexpressed anger or just constant self-criticism, your amygdala perceives a constant threat. It floods your body with stress hormones, specifically cortisol and adrenaline.
And what does that cortisol actually do to the physical body over time?
Well, cortisol is incredibly corrosive in high sustained doses. It actively suppresses your immune system by lowering the number of lymphocytes, those are your white blood cells, the frontline soldiers fighting off viruses.
So the anger doesn't magically spawn the virus out of thin air?
No, but the chronic emotional stress degrades your hardware so severely that when you encounter the rhinovirus on the subway, your body has no defenses left. The anger basically made you a hospitable host.
That reframes the entire concept. The symptom is essentially the alarm bell. It's the car's check engine light warning you about the corrupted code.
Exactly. The body is constantly communicating. When you're rigid and fearful, your autonomic nervous system shifts into sympathetic overdrive. Your muscles physically tense up, your breathing becomes shallow, your digestion actively slows down.
Which addresses the constipation metaphor perfectly.
Right. So whether you take Hay's symptom list literally or metaphorically, it functions as a diagnostic tool. It forces you to pause and ask, what emotional burden am I carrying right now that is actively stressing my physical system?
So to boil down this mind-body connection for the listener, the main lesson here is that your body is constantly talking to you and reflecting your emotional state.
Yes.
And the key belief to remove is that physical pain is random and entirely disconnected from our emotions.
The new belief to install is simply trusting the process of life, affirming that your body is a safe place for you to be.
And a great practical action to take immediately.
Next time you experience a random ache or tension, look at the metaphorical function of that body part. Like if your knees are aching and knees represent flexibility and moving forward, ask yourself where you are stubbornly resisting change in your life.
Identifying the resistance is vital. But knowing you have a problem doesn't automatically fix it, right?
No, it really doesn't.
If self-hatred and rigid resistance are the root causes of our struggles, how do we systematically overwrite that corrupted code?
Well, this is where we get into chapter 6, the actual mechanics of change. And the most famous practical tools from this philosophy are affirmations and mirror work.
I know someone listening is probably rolling their eyes right now, thinking, I work 60 hours a week. I am not staring into a mirror telling myself I'm a beautiful unicorn.
Totally. But the neuroscientific research we pulled shows these aren't just empty New Age mantras. They are validated tools for structural brain rewiring.
Let's break down mirror work, because the psychological mechanism behind it is actually intense. The exercise requires standing in front of a mirror, looking directly into your own eyes, and stating a positive intention, like, I love you, or I am willing to change.
Right.
When you look into your own eyes, you are forcing self-directed attention, which activates specific regions of the prefrontal cortex associated with self-awareness and self-evaluation.
And for most people, that evaluation is brutal.
Oh, it's so hard.
If you try to say, I love you to your reflection, it immediately forces all your underlying resistance, shame, and self-judgment right to the surface. It feels excruciating.
But the discomfort is the point. You are confronting the negative neural pathways you've spent years building. Every time you engage in negative self-talk, you strengthen a specific neural circuit. Through the process of neuroplasticity, your brain wires together the neurons that fire together.
Ah, the classic saying.
Yes. Over decades, that self-criticism becomes an automatic, high-speed neural superhighway. Affirmations are the process of consciously interrupting those established loops and deliberately building positive alternative pathways.
Wait, how do you bridge that gap, though? If I deeply hate myself and I look in the mirror and say, I am a perfect, radiant being, my brain is just going to laugh at me.
Yeah, it rejects it.
It feels like a lie. And honestly, it makes me feel worse. How do you trick the brain into accepting a positive thought when your current reality feels terrible?
You've highlighted the exact phenomenon psychologists call cognitive dissonance, specifically clashing with your self-schemas.
Self-scheme.
Your self-schema is the deeply embedded blueprint of how you view yourself. If an affirmation is too far removed from that blueprint, your brain's threat detection system rejects it as false information, which causes mental discomfort.
Right.
To bypass this defense mechanism, you have to use bridging statements.
So instead of jumping from 0 to 100, you just open the door a crack.
Precisely. Instead of an absolute claim like, I am perfectly healthy and successful, you state, I am willing to release the need for this resistance, or I am learning to approve of myself.
Oh, that feels so much more accessible.
Right. The brain accepts these statements because they don't violate your current reality. They simply acknowledge a process of growth. And neurological studies show that to make this structural change permanent, you need repetition paired with emotional engagement.
That's the illusion of truth effect, right?
Yes. The brain equates repeated information with truthfulness. When you repeat these bridging statements daily and you attach a genuine feeling of willingness to them, you stimulate the brain's reward pathways.
Wow.
Over time, you literally thicken the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex and weaken the fear centers in the amygdala. You are physically changing your brain's architecture.
That is incredible. Okay, so the summary for this segment on the mechanics of change. The main lesson is you can physically rewire your brain to support yourself rather than attack yourself.
And the key belief to remove.
The fatalistic idea that I can't change how I think, this is just who I am. The new belief is simply, I am willing to release all resistance to change.
Perfect. And the action step for the listener.
Go stand in front of a mirror today. Look deeply into your own eyes, touch your throat to connect with your center of communication, and say out loud 10 times, I am willing to release all resistance. Don't force a positive emotion, just notice whatever feelings bubble up.
Understanding the neuroscience is empowering, but integrating it into the chaos of modern life requires a system.
Yeah, it does.
Healing isn't a singular event. It requires consistently releasing the past and establishing a new daily rhythm. Which brings us to chapters 8 and 9.
Releasing the past is heavy, and in this framework, it relies almost entirely on forgiveness. There is a specific technique recommended in the sources called the Emmett-Fox exercise for dissolving resentment.
How does that work?
You sit quietly and you visualize yourself and the person you need to forgive. You literally say out loud, the person I need to forgive is, and you say their name, and I forgive you for whatever they did.
Yeah.
You do this repeatedly. Then, the crucial second half, you do it for yourself. I forgive myself for whatever guilt you are carrying.
The visualization aspect is key here, because the brain does not easily distinguish between a vividly imagined event and reality.
Right.
When you visualize forgiving someone, you are actively downregulating the physiological stress response that usually spikes when you think of them. Forgiveness, psychologically speaking, has nothing to do with condoning bad behavior.
Exactly. It is the selfish act of unhooking your own nervous system from a past event so you reclaim your metabolic energy for the present.
I love that phrase. Another massive energy drain she identifies is the should list. Think about how often you berate yourself, like, I should be making more money, I should be married by now, I should work out.
Ugh, the shoulds are the worst.
The philosophy suggests dropping the word should entirely and replacing it with could. I could work out more.
Linguistically, the word should implies an external demand or a moral failing, which triggers a threat response in the brain, often leading to guilt or rebellious procrastination.
Right. But could is a word of autonomy. It activates the prefrontal cortex's problem-solving capabilities. It turns a judgment into a choice, restoring your agency.
I know someone listening is thinking, okay, autonomy and forgiveness are great, but I have 2 toddlers and a mortgage. How does this map onto a chaotic modern reality?
Right, how do we actually do this?
To make these shifts permanent, Hay advocated for a structured daily implementation plan. Yes. In the morning, during those first few groggy minutes, before you even open your eyes, you express gratitude for everything you can think of. The bed, the warmth, the coming day. Then you incorporate meditation and affirmations.
And what about the rest of the day?
Midday, you deliberately pause for a moment of mirror work, like going to the bathroom and just saying, you're doing great, to your reflection. And you bless your food before eating. In the evening, you review the events of the day without judgment, bless them, and affirm that you will experience deep restorative sleep.
While it might sound demanding to do all that, the qualitative research on spirituality and emotional healing from our sources explains why this specific cadence is so effective.
Yeah.
That groggy state in the morning is the hypnopompic state, where your brain waves are transitioning from theta to alpha.
Yeah.
Your subconscious is highly programmable in that window.
Ah, that makes sense.
Furthermore, engaging in consistent mindful practices provides deep emotional regulation. These daily rituals create predictability, which signals safety to the nervous system.
It builds a stable spiritual identity. So when the chaos hits, you have an internal anchor. You are continuously overriding the noise of the world with an internal rhythm of safety and self-worth.
The research emphasizes that people with these consistent anchoring routines process trauma more efficiently and develop incredible emotional resilience. It's a cumulative effect.
Which brings us to our final summary for this section. Healing is not a one-time event. It's a daily, cumulative practice of letting go and building up.
The key belief to remove here is that I have to fix everything right now, and if I fail, I am bad.
Yes. And the new belief to install is, I am doing the best I can, and I release the past with love.
And the final practical action.
Tomorrow morning, before you open your eyes, before you reach for your phone to check the news or your emails, spend just 2 minutes simply being thankful for the bed you are in. Set the emotional tone of your nervous system before the world sets it in front of you.
When you synthesize all the source material we've covered today, the true brilliance of Louise Hay's work becomes really clear. She managed to bridge the gap between deep spiritual wisdom and modern neurobiology, decades before we had the fMRI machines to validate her claims.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And her methods aren't about ignoring reality through, toxic positivity.
No, it's about the profound realization that the harsh inner critic dictating your life is nothing more than an outdated neural pathway. It's a corrupted line of code, a tape recording of old hurts,
Right.
and you possess the biological and psychological power to hit pause, delete the code, and record something entirely new.
It's the ultimate reclamation of human agency.
It really is. Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought for you.
Yeah.
I want you to think about the most stubborn, recurring problem in your life right now. The one obstacle you just can't seem to shake, no matter what you try.
We all have one.
We do. If that specific problem was actually just a physical symptom, an alarm bell ringing to warn you about a deep, hidden belief that you simply don't deserve happiness or success, what happens to that problem if you finally give yourself permission to let the belief go?
The entire foundation of the problem collapses.
It really does. So the next time you feel like you need an x-ray to figure out what is fundamentally broken in your life, remember, the true picture and the power to change it might just be waiting for you in the mirror.